Here's a screenshot of transaction OKP1. Change CO period for the actual version. I'm sure this is a screen we're all familiar with, but I just want to bring a couple of observations to your attention. First, you'll see that there are two primary fields, controlling area and fiscal year, that control all of the business transactions below. Now, company code is not there, and I would not expect it to be here because company code is not a primary characteristic in controlling, and thus there is no reference of it here at the top. The second thing to mention is that the list of business transactions to be controlled or managed are listed below. These business transactions are stored in FICO document headers when a transaction is posted. And you can see these by going to the document display functions, respectively, for FI and CO. Now, I've listed here at the bottom right-hand corner a quick tip as to where you can find a complete list of these business transactions in the system. Now let's go to the next slide where I have an example of a CO business activity and the original SAP transaction that initiated the posting. You will see that business transaction RKL is shown on the controlling document. And RKL stands for activity allocation, which is one of the activities maintained on the CO period close transaction we reviewed on the previous slide. Managing CO period when all plants are on the same schedule and/or time zone is fairly straightforward. When PM confirmations are closed at month end, they are closed for all plants in the controlling area. And that makes sense. That's how the transaction works. But in this example, using plant maintenance confirmations, when you have multiple plants in different time zones, the timing of period close activities becomes critical to the overall efficiency of the close. And this is where a lack of a solution from SAP for closing CO activities in a more flexible manner becomes problematic. So how do we fix this issue? The situation where you have the business transaction closed for the month, but there are still transactions coming from other company codes. Well, what you may be thinking to yourself is, why don't you just leave the CO business transaction open for the period until all company codes are finished with their activities? Now, that's certainly an option for finance, and we've used that many times, but here's one problem that still exists. If one company code has finished their confirmations and is considered complete with its closing activities, their books are considered final, and they're not expecting any more postings coming in the current period. However, with the example of plant maintenance, confirmations as part of the business process are often reviewed and subsequently reversed if changes need to be made. Now, if the CO period is kept open, as we just suggested that might, suggested as an option, then these reversals that are executed, they use the original posting date. So how do we fix this issue? You're managing the month-end close for multiple company codes that may have different closing schedules. If one company has completed all of their activities, but you still have other company codes working in the system to finish up their activities, how do you manage the CO periods to prevent any further transactions for the company code that has already completed their transactions, while still allowing another company code to continue processing? Well, what you may be thinking to yourself is, well, what we could do is we could just leave the CO period open until all company codes are finished with their closing activities. And that certainly is an option for finance, But here's one potential problem that exists here. The company code that has completed their close is not expecting any more entries. But if we take the example of plant maintenance, current period confirmations are often reviewed at month end and subsequently reversed if corrections need to be made. Now, even though the new CO period has been open for normal business at this time, there still is a risk for reversals to actually come in and change the books. And here's why. Reversals for confirmations uses the original posting date of the transaction to post the reversal. So if the original confirmation happened in the month that you're closing, the reversal is therefore going to post in the month that you are closing. Now, for the company code that has already completed their entries, that can be a problem because this event has caused an unexpected change to the financials. So we have to find a better solution to manage situations like this, where one company code needs to have CO open, while at the same time protecting the financials and the books of another company code. And this is where CO validation rules come into play and can allow you to selectively maintain CO business transactions for one company code and allowing them to continue posting, while at the same time closing those business transactions for other company codes that may have finished their activities. Now, what you see here on the screen is a perfect example of what we're talking about. So at the top, you see a snapshot of the CO period transaction, and you can see that for period 8, we have locked the actual activity allocation business transaction. Now below, what you're looking at is you're looking at direct activity allocations for essentially 2 different company codes. And what you're seeing on the left is a transaction that has been allowed to post for a particular company code, while on the other side, a different company code, as you can see, has been blocked. So how do we achieve this? How do we manage this? Let's take a look at these validation rules and I'll show you how to do that.